Yeah, I mean that's so. So when you look and you walk through our building, there's a plan to win right on the wall outside the team room, and the number one thing on that is turnover margin. The number two thing on that is win the special teams game changers. And I think last year we won them 10 out of 12 regular season games, and we won them in the bowl game. That has to be a recipe for our success, because I think that's how you close a gap. You don't have to win every snap on offense and defense. You can give yourself a little bit more margin for success if you win on special teams. And by our counting, we were +8 on the night, and that was one of our widest margins in my time here. And so, when you factor in the block punts, when you factor in the net punts over 45 that Porter had, when you factor in the big return that Calhoun did have, which created a net punt under 35 on their end, us making all of our kicks, some of those things, I think ultimately that's why if you look at the stats and the stats are even or slightly tilted towards Clemson, I think those are maybe some of the hidden plays that are why the score winds up the way it does.
How did Wesley Williams get those 2 block field goals from that position on that?
Yeah, he did a really good job getting pushed with really low pad level, got great extension, and we always talk about it's a timing mechanism. It's like a push to reach. So you've got it in your mind when you're on the D line. You've got a clock in your head of I'm pushing to a certain point, at which point I got to extend. And Wesley's really long, and the kicks obviously were low. I mean, obviously there was a trajectory to the kicks that allows them to be blocked, but he still has to execute technique in order to be there and take advantage of the low trajectory, and he did it on both of them.
How's Jalen Coleman doing, and any other injuries coming out of the game?
Yeah, so Jalen had something towards the end of camp, and so he's kind of on a game-by-game basis. He's practicing. I don't know. It'll be a game-time decision this week if he's available or not. We really didn't have anything else coming out of the game. Obviously, Jeremiah Lewis got casted at halftime. He nicked up his thumb, and so he was the ACC Defensive Back of the Week this week with a broken thumb on the second drive of the game. And so hats off to his toughness and grit and how he persevered through all that and still went out and made an awful lot of plays.
Saw Justin Pickett out there, but Scott staying in at center. How important was it to have him available through the transfer portal and playing center?
Oh, Scott, yeah, huge. And we talk about that a lot, right? We have to continue to build depth on our roster because, we talk about this internally all the time, but at the end of the day, there's going to be a game on Saturday, right? And no one really cares how many people are hurt or not hurt or who's available or not available. There's going to be a scoreboard, and it's going to have a result at the end of it. And so all of those guys that we're able to add through the portal, even if in our initial thoughts, maybe they're depth guys or just coming in to compete and see what they can become. We were really fortunate last year with Jack Burns, and when we needed him to step up and be ready to go, he did, and Scott Elliott did the same. And really, Scott Elliott's had a heck of a camp, and he probably would have started at center regardless. Some of that was strategy too. I think those 2 defensive tackles, we felt like Monk at guard was going to be really important in this game because of those 2 defensive tackles.
Mike, going back to Wesley, we heard a lot about him in August, and then going back to what you said on Monday night about making blocks an emphasis. How maybe surprising is it to see those 2 things come to fruition for him in game 1? Like, that's something that usually plays out over a season, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's not as surprising. I'm trying to make sure I say this the right way, right? Like, it's not surprising to say that you emphasize something, you work really hard at it, and that creates results. And I think that's what happened. And we talk in our program a lot to our young kids about, like, taking advantage of the redshirt year. Some kids do and some kids don't, right? Like, if you look at your high school program, there's not a lot of future NFL players on scout team in high school, right? But in college, there are, right? In college, there's a lot of kids who just come in as freshmen and aren't quite ready. And if you take advantage of the year, you can launch yourself into a heck of a career. Jesse Bates is a kid I use as an example. He redshirted as a freshman, and he still got drafted after year 3, right? And so, like, just being a redshirt doesn't really do anything to you. And so, Wes took advantage of everything. And I think probably midway through the season last year is when we knew he was going to be a player. And so it's not surprising that he did everything we asked him to do last fall. He had a great winter. He had an amazing summer. He had a heck of a fall camp. Like, all of that ultimately produces results. And that's, to that degree. Now, the production and maybe the 2 block field goals, like maybe a little bit of that. But we certainly expected him to impact